She was surrounded by monsters, and he, a complete stranger, jumped into the pit to save her. But what neither of them knew was this: the real danger wasn't the creatures out there. It was what waited for them beneath the ground. Ash rained down from the sky like the remains of something ancient burning out. The atmosphere of Darien 9 always had that taste: iron, smoke, and silence. Carola crouched low beside a shattered sensor pod, her boots sinking slightly into the black dust that coated the crater floor. Her long ears twitched at the faint hum of energy dying from the machine's ruined core. She tapped the side of her visor. No signal. Just static. She was alone. The crater yawned in every direction, a bowl of molten scars and twisted metal. Down there, something had swallowed the last ping from her crew. And she'd followed it like a shadow chasing a whisper. "You're not dead." "Not yet," she muttered to herself, voice muffled by the mask. Then louder, as if defiance could keep the ghosts at bay, "So keep moving." She stepped over a collapsed beam, blade drawn, plasma slinger strapped tight to her hip. The terrain here had teeth-sharp ridges, sudden shifts, heat tremors that came and went like the breath of a sleeping god. Her scanner gave one final beep, then died. Carola sighed. Of course. That's when the ground moved. Not a quake. Not quite. A ripple beneath the ash. She froze. Listened. Then she heard it. A rasp. A skitter. Then a screech. They burst from the cracks like nightmares shaken loose from the planet's bones, multi-limbed, glistening, eyes like wet shards of obsidian. She didn't wait. Carola ran. The first beast lunged and caught only the hem of her cloak. The second crashed into a rusted girder, shrieking. She slid down a bank of gravel, drawing her blade in one clean motion. Heart pounding. Breath short. Back pressed against a fallen pod. "All right," she hissed, eyes locked on the circling shadows. "Come on, then." They came. Fast. Too many. Carola slashed, ducked, turned. One creature hissed as her blade cut across its face, but it didn't fall. They didn't stop. She moved purely on instinct now, body driven by training, by fear, by the stubborn fire that refused to let her die here. Then she slipped. Her foot gave on the soot-slick stone. A claw flashed toward her head. A blur slammed into the beast mid-air. The creature screeched. Then silence. A silver-blue arc lit the air. One clean slice. The monster fell in two twitching halves. Someone stood over her. He was panting. Armor scorched, cracked. Not legendary. Human. His helmet hissed as it unlocked, revealing a face streaked with dirt and blood, eyes sharp with adrenaline and something else, something ancient and alive. "You all right?" he asked. Carola blinked. "Who the hell are you?" "Name's Ree," he said, raising his blade again. "Was just out for a walk." "Your apocalypse sort of ruined the mood." She stared at him, disbelieving. Then more screeches. "No time." "Behind that crawler," she barked. They ran. Together. Not speaking. Not yet. They dove inside just as another creature slammed into the hatch behind them. Reed grabbed a steel rod and jammed it into place. The door held. For now. He collapsed against the wall, breath ragged. Carola stood, tense, blade still drawn. "What the hell are you doing here?" He looked up. Smirked. "Saving you, apparently." "I didn't need saving." "Sure. And I didn't need to fight lava lizards with 10 eyes today. Guess we're both disappointed." She frowned. Studied him. He was covered in soot, gear barely holding together. But he moved like someone used to chaos. Like someone who didn't plan on dying unless it was interesting. "You have a ship?" she asked. He chuckled. Had. May have exploded. Bad landing. Or good crash, depending on perspective. Carola lowered her weapon, just slightly. "You're insane." Reed grinned. "People keep saying that. Maybe there's something to it." Silence fell, broken only by the faint thumps of creatures outside, sniffing, scratching. "So," he said after a moment, "you got a plan, or are we just going to wait here and die together in awkward silence?" She leaned against the wall, exhaling slowly. Her gaze drifted to the locked hatch, then back to him. "What do you know about old Earth tech?" His eyes narrowed. "Enough to know it's usually trouble." "Why?" "Because," Carola said quietly, "whatever killed my crew wasn't one of those things out there." He didn't speak. She looked at him. Really looked. And for the first time since she lost the signal, Carola felt something shift. Not safety. Not trust. But the start of something neither of them could name yet. He nodded slowly. "All right then. Let's see how deep this hole goes." And in the cold dark of Darien 9, the two strangers prepared to descend together. Inside the darkened crawler, time moved like oil. Thick. Slow. The walls creaked under the strain of age, metal groaning with each shift of heat or quake. Carola sat cross-legged on the floor, her blade beside her, helmet off, sweat drying on her temple. Across from her, Reed dug into his pack with the casual confidence of someone who's survived disasters often enough to be unimpressed by them. He tossed her a ration bar. "It's mostly edible, I think." She caught it, suspicious. "What's in it?" "Hope and disappointment." "Mostly disappointment." She took a bite anyway. They sat in silence. The kind that didn't feel awkward, just unfamiliar. The kind that waits for one of them to say something true. "You're human," Carola finally said. Rhea looked up from taping a gash on his forearm. "Last time I checked." "Your kind started this," she added, voice flat. He didn't flinch. "Probably. We're good at that." She stared at him. "That doesn't bother you?" "It should. Maybe it does. But not more than this hole in my arm right now." He flexed his fingers, winced. "Pain's more immediate than guilt." She leaned back, eyeing him with the kind of caution usually reserved for wild predators. "You don't act like a soldier." "I don't act like anything," Rhea replied. "That's my charm." He smiled, but there was a crack in it. A small fracture only visible if you watched long enough. Carola shifted. How many wars have you lived through? Enough to know how they end. And yet you saved me? You looked like you could use a hand. Or a sword. I didn't need help. Sure, he said, not unkindly. But you didn't stop me? She looked down at her hands. Dirt under her nails. Dried blood near her wrist. She didn't have a comeback for that. The crawler hummed softly around them. Emergency lights blinked red like a fading heartbeat. You know this isn't over, she said. Whatever we saw out there, it wasn't the root. Nope. Just the weeds. She pulled out her wrist pad, activated the NAV scan. The projection lit the space between them in fractured green light. Rhea leaned closer, elbows on his knees. What are we looking at? Mapping core shows an artificial structure below us. Not recent. Old. Pre-Exodus era, maybe older. He whistled low. So we found a buried nightmare? She nodded. And something inside hijacked our systems. That's what brought me here. That's what killed them. Rhea was quiet for a moment. Then, why go deeper? Why not run? She looked up at him, jaw tight. Because someone might still be alive. Because someone has to stop it. Right, he said. Then added, softer, and because you don't want to be alone with it. She blinked. Once. But didn't deny it. He leaned back against the wall. All right. Let's go find your ghost. Carola raised an eyebrow. You're coming. Not like I have better plans. Besides, if you walk into a death tunnel alone, who'll be here to say I told you so when it collapses on you? She snorted. Almost a laugh. You're reckless. I get bored easily. They packed in silence. Rhea checked his plasma blade, muttered something to it like it was an old pet. Carola loaded coordinates into her pad, watching his movements when he wasn't looking. He wasn't like the stories. Human warriors were supposed to be cruel, efficient, merciless. But this one was broken in quiet ways, patched together with sarcasm and stubbornness. As they stood at the crawler door, Carola paused. You don't even know me? Sure I do. You're the one who keeps glaring at me like I ate your rations. You don't have to follow. Maybe not, Rhea said. But maybe today, I'm not here to ruin a planet. Maybe today, I just ruin your loneliness. She turned away quickly. But the corners of her mouth betrayed her. They opened the hatch and stepped into the dark together. She was surrounded by monsters, and he, a complete stranger, jumped into the pit to save her. But what neither of them knew was this: the real danger wasn't the creatures out there. It was what waited for them beneath the ground. The descent was silent. Not because they had nothing to say, but because every sound felt like it would echo forever in the underground gloom. Carola led the way, her eyes adjusting to the dim pulses of emergency light flickering along corroded walls. The tunnel spiraled down in uneven arcs, carved through layers of mineral and metal older than most civilizations. Behind her, Rhea kept up. Noisy, but aware. His plasma blade hung loose at his side, fingers occasionally tapping the hilt like a nervous tick. He hummed softly at one point an old tune, probably nonsense. Carola didn't ask. She liked the sound more than she thought she would. This place wasn't built for comfort, he muttered, ducking under a low beam. It wasn't built to be found, she replied. Eventually, the corridor opened into a chamber. Wide. Cold. Silent. In the center, a terminal. Dead. Covered in dust. Carola approached, brushing away sediment with her glove. Symbols flickered faintly beneath her fingers. Ancient Earth Standard. Blocky. Industrial. Looks like someone wanted to bury a secret in style, Rhys said, stepping beside her. She didn't respond. Her focus narrowed. Fingers flying across her pad as she tried to coax life back into the system. No power. Yet. Rhys wandered the room, poking at things he probably shouldn't. He found a control box with wires hanging like dead vines. Pulled out a tool that didn't quite match its purpose and got to work. You know what you're doing? Carola asked without looking up. Nope, he said cheerfully. But sometimes if you pretend hard enough, the universe believes you. She smirked. It was barely there. But it was real. He noticed. Didn't say anything. The lights flickered. A slow hum built up around them as backup power reactivated. Carola stepped back from the console. The wall to their left rumbled. A seam split down the middle, revealing a chamber sealed behind reinforced glass and centuries of dust. Inside, suspended in a glowing field, tangled in cables and fluid, was something neither of them had words for. Part machine. Part organic. Humanoid in shape, but wrong in all the details. Too many joints. Skin where there shouldn't be. Metal where nerves should run. Re-exhaled. You found your nightmare? Carola stared. This isn't just a weapon. It's a prototype. A hybrid. Built by humans. She hesitated. Then nodded. Our tech was compromised. Our system drawn here by something we couldn't identify. It hijacked the signal. It wanted us to find it. Reed took a step closer to the glass. The thing inside didn't move. But the fluid around it pulsed. Like breath. Why would something do that? Carola didn't answer. Instead, she moved to the interface beside the stasis field. A glowing panel blinked to life. Diagnostics. Power readings. Status, dormant. She reached out. Wait, Rhys said. Are you sure that's a good idea? She paused. I need to know what it knows. And I need you to not get possessed by an ancient robot ghost. She glanced at him. That half smile again. I'll try. Her fingers brushed the surface of the console. A soft chime. Then, movement. The fluid bubbled. The cables twitched. Inside the pod, the creature's eyes snapped open. Red. Burning. Alive. The room dimmed. Systems whined. The stasis field sparked. Carola staggered back. Reed caught her arm. What did you do? I woke it. I didn't mean to, But it responded. It recognized my access code. The hybrid inside thrashed once. Alarms screamed. Reed drew his blade. Plasma ignited with a low hum. Tell me we can shut it down. Carola scrambled to the interface. Her fingers flew. I need time. He nodded. Time I can buy? She looked at him. Just for a moment. Don't die, all right. He winked. If you give me a reason to live, I might reconsider. Then he turned to face the monster. And smiled. She was surrounded by monsters, and he, a complete stranger, jumped into the pit to save her. But what neither of them knew was this: the real danger wasn't the creatures out there. It was what waited for them beneath the ground. The stasis field shattered. With a sound like metal screaming in agony, the hybrid entity lunged forward, its limbs unfolding too far, too fast. Sparks rained from overhead conduits. The chamber darkened, then flared red as emergency systems struggled to contain a power surge that hadn't been expected in centuries. The creature landed between them and the main console, and its head snapped toward Carola. Reed didn't wait. He moved with violent precision, plasma blade lighting the air in a brilliant arc. It met metal, screamed against it, then bit deep. The creature screeched. One of its arms detached, black fluid spraying like oil into the dust. But it barely staggered. It swung another limb, a blade of bone and alloy, straight at Reed's chest. He ducked just in time. The impact shattered the floor beside him. Carola. She was already at the backup console, yanking open a side panel. Her wrist pad synced with the system and began rooting a manual override. Her fingers moved faster than she thought they could. Power reroutes. Cooling controls. Emergency sealant lines. She needed 60 seconds. Maybe less. Behind her, Reed fought like a man who had decided death was only inconvenient if it came before he was done. His blade sang. He vaulted over the collapsed stasis ring, landed hard, drove the blade into the creature's spine. Sparks burst. The thing screamed again, a distorted, animalistic sound. Buy me time, she shouted. That's the plan, he yelled back. The creature retaliated. Tentacles of braided wires launched from its back, slamming into the walls, lifting debris as shields. One wrapped around Reed's leg and yanked. He hit the ground, hard. Carola turned, just in time to see the thing looming over him, its head splitting open to reveal rows of shifting needles. No. She launched forward, her blade drawn, slicing the tentacle in one motion. The severed cable sparked and recoiled. She dropped beside Reed, dragging him back. Stay down. Not how I do things, he growled, coughing. Well, maybe try it once. For me. He blinked at her, blood in his teeth, but managed a smile. If this is the last thing I hear from you, I want it to be that. Then he stood again. Bleeding. Bruised. But standing. I said buy me time, she shouted. And I'm buying in bulk. The fight blurred. Reed threw a grenade that lit up the room with deafening force. The hybrid reeled, momentarily stunned. Carola finished rerouting the final power cycle and slammed her hand against the activation glyph. A deep rumble shook the floor. Blue light pulsed from the walls. Containment relays began to lock in sequence. 1, 2, 3. The hybrid shrieked as it sensed what was happening. It turned, lunged at her. Ree stepped into its path. Blade raised. No hesitation. The impact flung him across the room. He hit the wall. Slid down. Didn't move. The creature reached for Carola, just as the final containment ring surged to life. A pulse of energy blasted outward, freezing it in mid-motion. The stasis field reignited with a shriek of feedback. The hybrid screamed one last time, then went still. Locked in time. Silence fell. Carola dropped to her knees. Her chest rose and fell like she'd been drowning. Across the room, Ree lay motionless. She ran to him. Ree. No response. She touched his shoulder. Warm. She shook him. Ree, damn it, don't you dare. He groaned. Then, that was a terrible idea. She exhaled. Not a breath. A collapse of every nerve. You idiot. You're welcome. She wrapped her arms around him. Tight. Without thinking. He didn't hug back at first. Then slowly, one arm raised, pulling her in. They sat like that, in the ruins, the hybrid trapped again behind its glass coffin. Blood smeared his fingers. Her armor was cracked. The lights flickered overhead. I've lived my whole life not trusting anyone, she said, voice quiet. Not even my own people. He leaned his forehead to hers. She didn't stop him. But I trust you. Even with blood on your hands. Even when you dive headfirst into monsters like a madman. He smiled. We all need a hobby. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I choose you. Here. Now. Not because I should. Because I want to. He laughed. A rough sound. Then winced. That hurt. Only everything. Good. You're alive. He looked at her, more serious now. So what now? She turned toward the frozen monster. Now we find out who else built one of these. That sounds like another bad idea. She helped him stand. You in? He grinned through blood and soot. Always. She was surrounded by monsters, and he, a complete stranger, jumped into the pit to save her. But what neither of them knew was this: the real danger wasn't the creatures out there. It was what waited for them beneath the ground. The rescue team arrived just before the second quake. The sound of their ship was low and sharp, a distant howl slicing through the stillness. Carola stood near the crater rim, one arm around Ree, who leaned heavily against her, trying not to limp too obviously. Their signal beacon pulsed faint blue, guiding the vessel in. The stars above had faded into the early amber of Darien 9's morning light, which bled through the dust like a bruise that hadn't healed. The ship landed without ceremony. Doors hissed open. They stepped out in armor sleek, dark, high-collared, marked with the silver sigil of the Elendary High Order. Their leader approached first, a tall figure with pale skin traced with luminous lines, hair woven in traditional coils, eyes sharp with authority. Carola, she said flatly, stopping a few feet away. "We received your signal." Carolyn nodded. "We found the source. And we contained it." The woman looked at Ree. Her gaze lingered. "And this is human," one of the squad muttered behind her. The word fell like something distasteful. Carola stepped forward, placing herself slightly between them. "This is Ree," she said firmly. "He saved my life. More than once. I wouldn't be standing here if not for him." There was silence. Waited. The squad exchanged glances. A flicker of disapproval, of discomfort. The Elendari did not have a history of trusting humans. And their reasons weren't without cause. Ree cleared his throat. "Hi. I'm the one bleeding on your crater. Sorry about the mess." No one laughed. Carola let out a breath. "He's not the enemy. He's my ally. My choice." The leader studied her for a long moment. Then nodded once. "Then he comes with us." Ree blinked. Wasn't expecting that to work. They boarded in silence. The ship lifted from the ground, leaving the crater behind. Through the viewport, Carola watched the ground shrink away, the scars, the wreckage, the monster sealed in steel and silence. It was over. For now. In the medbay, Ree sat shirtless on the edge of a cot, covered in gauze and bioskin patches. Carola stood nearby, arms folded, silent. A medic offered him a stim for the pain. He refused. "I'm fine. Just bruised in interesting places." "You always talk this much when you're almost dead?" "Only when I like the company." She smirked. "A real one this time." He looked at her, quieter now. "So, what happens next?" She hesitated. Then walked over, sat beside him. "We debrief. We archive what we found. And then, I don't know. You go home." She looked at him. "I don't know where that is anymore." He nodded. "Didn't push." "You could come with us," she said, almost too quickly. He turned. "What?" She looked down at her hands. Then back at him. "You don't have to go back to wherever you came from. I mean, if you don't want to." He was quiet for a beat. Then smiled. Not teasing. Not sarcastic. "If you need someone to annoy you every morning and make bad jokes during near-death moments, I'm in." Her hand brushed his. He didn't pull away. Later, under the stars bleeding past the medbay dome, they sat side by side. No more battle. No alarms. Just silence. Her head leaned against his shoulder. Their hands rested between them, fingers barely touching. She looked at him. "I used to think you were a nuisance." He smiled without looking. "Still am." She turned a little more toward him. "Yeah. But now you're my nuisance." He let out a low laugh, then reached up to run a hand through his hair. "You know what this is, right?" She raised an eyebrow. "This is the part where the human and the alien fall for each other and start something really stupid." She smiled. Soft. Knowing. "Then let's be stupid together." Outside the window, the stars shimmered like they were holding their breath. And for the first time since the descent into Darien 9, neither of them felt alone.